Well, hello guys and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Ben and today we are going to look at Laravel directory structure and also looking at Laravel application lifecycle. In our previous tutorials, we introduced Laravel, we learned how to install it, and I'll just quick recap. So we learned why should you use Laravel. We also looked at how to install it and what you need first. We said you need Composer, you need to have PHP already, and we looked at how to install both of them. Then we learned how to create Laravel using the Composer method, not using the Laravel installer. We'll still go back to that, but that's when we already now understanding this thing the way it is flowing. So don't forget, please, to subscribe. Don't forget to like this video and comment. Ask questions if you have any. And today we are looking at a Laravel directory structure. So let's start with the first one. And the first on top here is a folder named app. The app folder of a Laravel applications is where now all your code will be. Let me repeat, all your classes, all your logic will be inside the app folder, because we said Laravel is going to be MVC. So just imagine that this app folder is going to contain the M and the C, that is the models and the controllers. We'll skip console because what you're doing right now is not console. What you're doing is for web applications and APIs and stuff like that. So we'll skip console, we'll skip exceptions folder, and then we'll go inside our HTTP. And when you open it, you'll see that we have controllers and we have middlewares. Now, what are controllers? This is where all your logic will be going. Remember, every functionality on your Laravel application should have its own controller. So you're going to have a controller folder and we'll see how to use it. And then we have middlewares. So middlewares, these are like before a request is processed here, you can create something that must check whether it's valid or not. For example, if we have users with specific roles, we'll create a middleware for roles, and then we'll guard all our controllers and our routes using the middlewares. Okay. Then we have our models folder, and models, this is where we have everything about database, and this is actually just take it very simply. This is just a connection to your table in the database. Understand it like that. Connection between your controller and the specific table that you need to use. So we stop at that point because we're going to look at it. The next thing is you're going to have, let me close this. We have providers as well, and we'll discuss these probably when we'll be working on this one. But providers, basically, if you can look at maybe route, I don't want to discuss these things. I just want to take you through project folder structure. So that's it. The second folder here is Bootstrap, and it contains actually this page. And now this one, what happens here is that the app folder or the Bootstrap folder, it contains a file called PHP, app.php, this one, which bootstraps or which now initializes everything on your Laravel application. We won't be coming here very often, so we'll again close that one. Then we have configuration, and as it just says, we'll have our configs here, and we can configure anything that we want inside. Then we have database. This will contain, as you can see, factories, migrations, seeders, and I'll explain migrations. Migrations folder contains methods that creates tables that we want to use in our application. So we will come still to this one because we're still doing this one. And seeds are just, we'll add probably demo data that you want, but we're not still going again to talk about that for now. Public folder, this is the entry point to your application. Let me call it entry point to your application. It does everything like the index page here. It auto loads now the framework, loads this vendor auto load so that other applications can use what we have inside the vendor folder. And it's very, very crucial because this is again where we add all our CSS and JavaScript and images and let's talk of static assets in this public folder. Then we have our resources folder, and this is where you have now the views, as you can see, and all CSS and JavaScript files that are not compiled. So everything will be here, so you will be editing this a lot. This is now where our V is. On app folder, we have our M and C, and on resources folder, we have our v, which is the views, and here they are. So we'll still go through it. Then we have our routes folder, and this is now very interesting because this is when I will be configuring our various endpoints on our application. For web, if you have maybe a dashboard or a website and you want people to see something, this way you're going to do it. If you have an API, this is what you're going to use to create your API routes. For now, we are not going to discuss about channels and console. Then we have storage, and storage is interesting because this is where we are having all our log files. We'll have the framework, which contains cache, sessions, which are stored as files, all our testing results and everything, and views, which are now compiled resources. Then we have our app folder, which will now contain anything that we'll choose or we'll write from this one. It will just come here and it will be written here. So if you write a file in your Laravel application, you won't find it on the same directory you've created it. You'll need to come to storage and you go to app, and that's when you'll find it. But you still need to do a small configuration, which we'll do later. Tests, as it just says, you can test a feature and you can do unit testing with this one. We'll still do some few tests in this tutorial. Then we have vendor folder, which now contains all the Composer packages that other developers have done, and this is also where we have our framework Laravel. It's also inside here, and other so many, including for unit test we're using PHP unit, so it's inside this one. Then we have our env file, and this is where now we're going to configure all our settings for the app. Database connection, things that don't change most of the time but are constant. We're going to have them here. Let's skip all that one. Then we have artisan. Remember, we talked about Laravel having its own CLI called artisan, and this is actually what bootstraps it, and it understands when you type an artisan command. Then from there we have package.json. As we said, this utilizes npm, Node.js, which is npm, and we can install all this and we can run every command that is here and it still work, and we use it to install external packages that are going to be used here. Then we have our server and our mix webpack, and webpack is just for loading assets, CSS, JS, and everything. So here we have our server, and this is basically what controls whatever you're going to do, and it just points us to the public folder, which is this one, and we get our assets. We take our entry point, which is now our index.php, and everything like that. So basically that's now the folder structure of Laravel. Most of the time you're going to find ourselves working between routes, resources, and app. That's where we're going to spend most of our time in. When we'll start doing packages and stuff like that, we'll now start working with providers, and we can even create something else that we'll use. Now, Laravel is very, very flexible. Developers do things differently, so as long as your package or whatever you're doing can be auto-loaded, it's not a must that you follow this structure. So that's Laravel, yeah. But for us, we're just going to follow the standard route, and I'm going to teach you as quickly as possible. And now that you have understood the folder structure, now let us talk about a lifecycle. What happens when a user visits your website or your dashboard or whatever it is that is made using Laravel? That is what basically a lifecycle is. What happens when something is being done on your application? And we're going to start with a very common thing. When someone wants to visit your website, he sends a request using the browser, and the first thing that we receive is a request. Now, when a request comes, our application must run an instance. Let me not use a lot of words because you'll go and read for yourself. But when we send a request to this application, what basically we are going to do, we're going to make a request into our public and then index.php. Someone sends a request. This is basically a request lifecycle. So request comes HTTP. What happens? It loads index.php in our public folder. Then public folder, first of all, loads again a service provider, and the first service provider that is loaded is actually depends on what we have, but the first is route service provider in our case, and the first method that is called is boot. What does this do? It handles everything, routing. So this boot, let me just now walk you through. So once we try to make a request here, maybe localhost/API. What will happen? That's a request. It will be handled correctly. Then it will be sent to, first of all our providers. This will be loaded and some rate limiting of some kind. So let's skip about that. We'll talk about it later. Then we'll check what is the prefix. So the prefix here is API. So if you've said localhost/API, this is going to be checked using this, and the middleware that is going to be applied is the API middleware. Then we're going to be redirected to routes, then API.php. So it's going back to the routes. So we'll scroll to the routes here, and then we'll go to API.php, and whatever is inside there, we're going to be shown or to be displayed based again on a condition that we'll have to meet on our API request here. So let me go back to our route service provider. Now that we have loaded everything, the next one is routing, which we've said checks here, then goes to our API route. Then routing is the fourth one, and this one is now in charge of dispatching, and this one is now in charge of dispatching a request to a router or to the specific controller. So routing has finished serving a request and the journey ends. So let me say this, that if now we're able to find that this one is required in a specific, or we are supposed to run a specific controller, the route will check and then run it to the specific controller that we'll have, and basically that's how it ends. So let us summarize everything that we have looked at, the life cycle. So the first thing is 1, request. 2 is HTTP or console. So this is where we handle, or we write, we give to our index.php in our public folder. Then the third thing that we do is we load our service providers. Service providers, they'll handle middlewares and everything. They'll load it there. Then the fourth one we have is routing, and everything that goes to routing is probably handled from the service provider then to the routing, and then the routing serves you with the specific content that is supposed to be served using or from a specific controller, and basically that's the whole process. Let me just put some things that we can understand here so it looks neat without. So we have request, we have HTTP, there is console or HTTP, then we load our service providers, and then we load our routing. I hope it's clear up to that part. And so because we are done with that and the video introduction or this part, so the next video that we're going to do is now we're going to create a simple controller, a simple model, and a simple view, so that now we can start now coming up with our, or building up on our knowledge on Laravel framework series. I'm so excited, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'm sure you've learned something. And everything that we've covered today, seriously, is going to be very important, and it's going to be very critical for you going forward when you are dealing with Laravel. So I'm hoping you're going to pay a lot of attention to this one. And until next time, guys, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like, don't forget to comment on the comment section below. Leave anything that you want me to know. Teach other students anything that you've understood. Write your own notes on the comment section. Go to GitHub, follow me, because I'm going to be giving you tips and free code samples on Laravel and another work on GitHub. So don't forget, subscribe, go to GitHub, follow me, then wait for tomorrow's video, and it's going to be hot. Thank you, guys, and let's meet next time.